Welcome. Ready for another journey? I'd love to know where you're watching from. Now put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and try not to let fear take over. And I really wish what I'm about to tell you was just fiction. Unfortunately, this is the true story of the nightmare my sister Rafaela went through when she fell in love with the wrong man. She was 19 years old when she called me, completely excited, to say that she had met an amazing guy and that they were already living together. She assured me that he was perfect, that he truly loved her, and that they were very happy. I confess that I was overjoyed with the news because she had always been a beautiful girl and a wonderful person. Maybe she was too young, but it's never too late or too early when true love arrives. Rafaela was always the queen of the school. Blonde, tall, thin, and with beautiful eyes that seemed to change color. She was the envy of many girls. But she wasn't just beautiful. She was also extremely talented. She played practically any instrument that was put in her hands, and had a voice that made everyone vibrate. In other words, she could have any boy she wanted without much effort. I lived in the capital and she lived in a city in the interior. We planned a weekend for me to visit her and meet this guy who had won her heart. I got in the car and drove about 4 hours to her city. I was very excited to see what her life was like now. But when I finally arrived at the address, I was speechless. It was an old place, with peeling walls and an appearance of total abandonment. Something that didn't match her at all, considering how perfectionist and meticulous Rafaela had always been. She greeted me all excited and we hugged. At that moment, a guy of about 40 years old came out of a back room, looking tired and completely disheveled. It was Saulo, her boyfriend. Honestly, for the first second, I thought it was a prank, but it wasn't. He himself, a bald guy with a huge beer belly, clearly a drug user, with some fake teeth that looked ill-fitting, and a smell of marijuana that almost made me vomit. From the first moment, he caused me deep disgust. Not only because he was sloppy, but because he seemed to not take care of himself at all. And judging by everything I had seen there, it was evident that this man was a failure and an addict. Not good for Rafaela. But that wasn't all. On top of everything, he was rude. Every time he spoke to her, he used an aggressive and humiliating tone, saying horrible things to her face and in front of me, as if she were stupid. A few minutes later, I found out that he was going to start working at a neighborhood diner, although it was never clear if he actually started. Rafaela, super excited, asked me what I thought of him. Well, I don't mince words, so I let loose. Look, Rafaela, this guy is an imbecile. He doesn't treat you well. He's broke, and I think you're making a terrible mistake staying with this guy. She tried to defend him, saying that was just how he was, and that she liked him as he was. She said he loved her, cared about her, that he was a great man, and that I just needed to get to know him better. But I already knew that as long as she stayed there, things would only get worse. Saulo was too intense with her, and when I was around, he became even more unpleasant. He would make comments like, "She doesn't do these things here," or other humiliating nonsense that only showed how much of an idiot he was. We spent the weekend without fighting, but every minute I felt more uncomfortable. What hurt me the most was seeing how Rafaela lowered herself for him and how Saulo took advantage of that love. When I had to leave, I made my opinion very clear. That story couldn't end well, and she should be very careful. Several months passed. Rafaela turned 20 and, to my surprise, married Saulo. I didn't agree with this union at all, because deep down I knew that guy was no good, but I couldn't do much more than warn her and worry. Rafaela always wanted to be a mother, but she had endometriosis, and it seemed like it was going to be very difficult to get pregnant. My other sister, Isadora, also had a very complicated story. She got pregnant at only 15 years old and decided that she couldn't raise her daughter. When her parents found out, the whole family got together to discuss what to do. It was in this context that Rafaela and Saulo became very interested in the situation and proposed to Isadora that they keep the baby to raise it as if it were their own. To me, that was crazy, and I felt I had to do something. I called Isadora and warned her that Saulo was no good person, that I didn't trust him, and that it was better to rethink this decision. But Isadora didn't like my advice at all. She trusted them, thought they were fine, and that they would take care of the baby in the best way. We argued a bit, but in the end, she decided to give the child to them. Months after the baby's birth, Rafaela and Saulo moved into my parents' house. At that time, I was also temporarily living there. Although it wasn't a huge house, at least they were close to family. But it didn't take long for my parents to start noticing the same thing I had already warned them about. Not even a month had passed since they moved out when they left for a bigger apartment. But they didn't last long either, and they ended up returning to the countryside with the baby. I visited them from time to time, and on one of those visits, the baby was almost a year old. But what I saw was not pretty at all. It was a scene from a horror movie. The little girl was crawling on a filthy rug, covered in cat dirt and blood, and on the high chair, there was a lot of rolling tobacco scattered around that they used to roll straw cigarettes and save money. Seriously, it was a dirty, neglected, horrible place. Solo wouldn't stop mistreating Rafaela, and now even the little girl was getting it. The poor baby looked sad, and sometimes I felt like crying just seeing her in that situation. But the worst part came months later when Rafaela called me and dropped a bombshell. Solo had assaulted her. She told me they had a nasty fight, and he violently attacked her. She, trying to defend herself from the attack, pushed him with all her might. Solo fell onto the coffee table and broke the entire table with his body weight. My sister is short, but she's very strong, and she felt proud because she didn't let that coward dominate her. Soon after, she told me that the police were called, and the situation turned against her. Since she had pushed him and caused the fall, she ended up being taken to the police station to give a statement. She had to sign a statement and listen to a lecture as if it were her fault. The truth is, my blood boiled because he was the monster in the story. But above all, I was terrified for the baby's safety. After that, over time, she got a job at a gas station convenience store and made friends with some people there who became like a second family to her. But it was long before one day they saw her arriving at work with a giant black eye, so swollen that she couldn't even open it. A co-worker got furious and practically forced her to file a police report. Salo was arrested for bodily harm, but during the investigation, they discovered that my niece was living in a situation of abuse. The worst part was the justice system. He got less than a year in jail. And when he got out, he thought Rafaela had an obligation to come back to him. At that time, Rafaela had already moved with her daughter to another apartment. A decent place, at least, but he started stalking her and turning her life into hell. Tired of it, she decided to put an end to it. She filed for divorce and obtained a restraining order against him in court. The divorce was finalized shortly afterward, and Solo left for another state, far away from here. And when it seemed like the nightmare was over, the story got really macabre. A few months later, Salo returned to Rafaela's house, violating the restraining order, banging on the window, wanting to see her. She said no immediately and told him that if he wanted to see the girl, he would have to wait until the next day. In the following days, they met in public places so he could see his daughter for a while. But he kept insisting that he wanted to go back and get his family back. Thank God, she didn't give in. Shortly after, my sister received a call from a civil police investigator from that other state where Salo had gone. They asked if she had been in contact with Salo, and she admitted that she had. The police officer then warned that she should keep her distance because Salo was extremely dangerous. He said that Salo was wanted for the murder of his last girlfriend, and in fact, a few days later, they arrested him, and he was convicted of that murder after confessing to the crime. We were in shock. According to the investigations, it was a brutal crime. He stabbed the girl several times and hid the body in a closet in the apartment where they lived. Since then, Salo has been in prison, and from what we recently learned, he is now dying of cancer in jail. It's not that I feel sorry for him. The truth is that he is an imbecile and a murderer. He deserves all the bad things that happened to him. Honestly, I hope she pays for everything she did, slowly and painfully. When I look back and think about everything that happened, I realize how difficult it is to identify the danger that lurks in seemingly ordinary people. Rafaela was lucky to escape with her life, but she carries the scars of this story forever. The scariest thing is knowing that stories like this happen every day right beside us, and often we only discover the truth when it's too late. I'm going to give you some advice that I learned the hard way. Never trust someone who gives you the creeps, and never give yourself away before you know who the person really is. Why do I say this? Because I lived through this situation firsthand and almost didn't survive to tell the tale. It all happened about 6 years ago. I was one of those guys who had never managed to have a real relationship. So, when the chance to go out with a beautiful girl named Alicia came up, I thought it was my big opportunity. I was very nerdy at the time, And let's be realistic. The girls in high school and college didn't give a damn about a guy like me. They only wanted the handsome or the rich. I was invisible, always waiting for someone to give me a chance. But then came the day of my college graduation, and I made a decision. I needed to get a date, no matter what it cost. That's when I created profiles on several dating apps. Weeks later, I met Alicia. She was, without a doubt, the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. We chatted online for a few days before meeting in person. She told me that she was also considered a nerd at her school, but I couldn't believe it. If it was true, she must be the hottest nerd that ever existed. After a few days of exchanging messages, Alicia asked me out. I couldn't believe my luck. We decided to meet at a cafe, and as soon as she walked in, I felt everything change. Suddenly, all eyes were on her, as if a celebrity had just arrived. Alicia had incredibly soft skin. Her long black hair was impeccable, and her blue eyes were so intense that I got lost in them. Besides, her voice was beautiful. It sounded like music. My God, I was so happy, and at the same time so insecure. Everyone there seemed to be jealous of me. We talked a lot, and every time she laughed, I felt like the world was getting better. On the way out, she asked me if she could go to my house while playfully touching her hair, and all I could say was yes. Without thinking, I mentioned that I lived alone, and as soon as we got inside, she started kissing me and taking off her clothes. I was on cloud 9. I couldn't believe my luck. That afternoon, everything happened all over the house. It was my first time, and I never imagined I would feel something so incredible. She made sure everything was perfect, but after we finished, she simply got dressed and left without saying a word. I didn't know what to think. Although everything had been magical, something inside me started to give me a bad feeling, and that feeling didn't disappear while I was cleaning up the mess. Now I look back and think, if I had paid attention to the signs, in the following days I felt restless. I wanted to have Alicia in my arms again, but the opportunity didn't appear. For 3 days we didn't talk much, and I was nervous because it was all new to me. And besides, it was my first time. I tried to connect with her again, but it seemed like she wasn't that interested in giving me a clear answer. Did she not like it? I thought and tortured myself with that. I mean, I was a novice at the matter, and the fact that she had distanced herself made me insecure. In the end, I decided to send a message. I asked if she had enjoyed the afternoon as much as I had, and her answer was a relief. Yes, I loved it. It was incredible. I was thrilled to read that, but then she surprised me by saying she was planning a road trip. The idea of a trip for 2 made me feel like the man. My ego was through the roof, so I accepted right away. The plan was to see each other that same week, and I could barely contain my excitement. When the day of the trip arrived, I barely slept the night before because of so much anxiety. I woke up early anyway and spent hours getting ready. I had even packed some toys for us to use during the trip. In my head, it was going to be wild and fun. When night fell, we met at the agreed-upon spot to begin the trip. I found it strange that Alicia hadn't brought anything besides her purse, but I thought it might be a quick trip and didn't think much of it. We got into my car, me at the wheel and her in the passenger seat, and we took the road towards the mountains. After about 10 minutes of going uphill, I felt her hand caressing my leg, which got me very excited, and then she started giving me oral sex right there. I was so caught up in the moment that I decided to pull the car over to the side of the road on a stretch of mountain road that looked deserted. There was no one in sight, just darkness and the silhouette of the surrounding vegetation. I started kissing her and taking off our clothes, but just when I was at my peak, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, and a chill ran through my body. I opened my eyes and froze when I saw that she was holding a knife. I saw blood starting to stain the blade. I was in shock for a moment, and before I could react, she tried to stab me again. I tried to grab her hand, but she was stronger than I imagined. What underscores this? Are you crazy? I asked, completely panicked. Come on, is this going to be so much fun? She replied with a strange laugh, as if she were completely insane. I've done this before, and it's too exciting. Your blood will cover me while we have sex, and then I'll rest on your corpse. I froze. I couldn't believe it. That girl was completely crazy. At that moment, I panicked and fought with all my might to take the knife from her, but she kept trying to stab me, managing to cut me several times during the fight. I knew I needed to get to a hospital soon, or it would be the end for me. Then, in the middle of the fight, I managed to push her hard. In the abrupt movement, she lost her balance, and the knife that was in her hand ended up hitting her own neck. Terrified, I pulled out the knife and stabbed her again to make sure she wouldn't get up. And she died right there in front of me. Not knowing what to do, I dropped the knife on the ground next to her and, with great difficulty because of the pain in my chest, dragged her body to the driver's seat. The mountain range was full of deep precipices covered in dense vegetation. No one would find anything there. I maneuvered the car to the edge of the ravine, put it in neutral, released the handbrake, and pushed the vehicle with her inside down the embankment. Fear gripped me as I listened to the sound of the car breaking branches and disappearing into the darkness of the valley. I was injured and alone in the middle of nowhere. I had to walk several kilometers along the side of the road. Each step was tortured until I found a gas station. I looked for the bathroom and went in quickly, without anyone seeing me properly. I washed the blood from my face and hands as best I could, and zipped my jacket up to my neck to hide my torn and stained shirt. I bought some water to disguise it, and outside the gas station I managed to get a cell phone signal to call an Uber. The ride back was tense. I prayed that the driver wouldn't start a conversation and wouldn't notice my condition. In the days that followed, I became obsessed with the local news, hoping they would find the car down there, but nothing ever came out in the newspaper. Probably the dense vegetation covered everything and no one passed through that stretch. Afraid that they would call me about the accident and ask questions I couldn't answer, I decided to go to a hospital. I preferred to treat my wounds at home, even risking them getting worse, and potentially leading to death. Luckily, most were superficial. The one on my chest took longer to heal because it was quite ugly and deep. It scared me quite a bit, but then it started to heal. To this day, that experience haunts me. Since then, I haven't gone out with anyone. Not because I'm a failure at dating or because I'm a nerd, but because every time I think about trying again, panic paralysis may. I keep thinking, what if something like that happens again? Maybe next time I won't be so lucky. So many time, my husband and I took a trip that was supposed to be peaceful, but it ended up becoming one of those experiences that leave a lasting mark. One night we were returning from a walk through the valley and crossing a dark stretch of road near the city's entrance gate, when the car's headlights illuminated something disturbing which appeared to be a person lying on the side of the road with their feet facing the asphalt. I realized this immediately. So, I told my husband that there was someone there, but he took a quick look and said there was no one. I stood my ground and insisted that there was, but he just smiled and said that I should stop watching those crime shows because they were making me see things where there were you and any. Look, I'm a big fan of true crime stories, and that's exactly what my husband was referring to. But in this case, I was convinced that what I had seen was very real. But he insisted that they were just some black garbage bags, and kept repeating that. It wasn't trash, it was a person. I repeated for the thousandth time, but he didn't even care. When we finally arrived at the hotel, while we were parking, my husband looked at me seriously and asked if I was absolutely sure about what I had seen. He said that if I wanted, we could go back to check. At that moment, it was as if a tightness in my chest took over me. I knew I couldn't just let it go, so primera said yes, that we had to go back. We turned around, and as we passed the place again, I managed to make out some feet in the darkness. "Stop the car," I yelled, and he braked sharply. I rolled down the window and called out, "Hi, are you okay?" But no one answered. I tried again, this time louder. "Hey, can you hear me? Is everything all right there?" Suddenly, a woman dressed all in black sat up at once. She's wearing a large, beautiful coat, dark pants with her purse thrown to the side. She had a sweet face and, despite the situation, maintained a well-groomed appearance, but she seemed confused, in another world. At that moment, I turned to the right and saw that my husband was pale, completely shocked by the situation. I asked a woman where she was going, and she told me she was trying to get to the gas station further ahead. She said her mother was waiting there to pick her up. I was surprised when I realized that this woman must have been over 40 years old, and something in her answer didn't sound right, because that gas station was about 10 kilometers from where we found her. She thought she was very close to her hotel, and that she could walk there, which made no sense at all in that freezing cold. So, we offered her a ride, and she got into the back seat of our car. But before getting in, she pulled her coat collar way up, looking suspicious. as if she expected something bad to happen at any moment. I didn't pay much attention at the time and thought that maybe she was just a little disoriented or very cold. While we were driving, we tried to talk to her, ask silly questions, as if that might make her more comfortable. I asked why she was lying on the side of the road, and she told me that she had simply gotten tired of walking and decided to rest a little, as if she were ready to give up on everything. I found that very strange, since she wasn't wearing a hat or gloves, and the cold wind was cutting her skin. I felt that she was too vulnerable. When we finally arrived at the gas station, the woman thanked us, got out of the car, and sat on a bench right in front of the convenience store. We told her we could wait with her until her mother arrived, but she assured us she was fine and didn't need company. But something didn't add up for me, so I kept insisting, reminding her that the cell phone signal in the mountains was terrible, almost non-existent, but there was no way to convince the woman. Finally, we returned to our hotel, a little more relieved, but that situation didn't leave me at ease. Upon arriving, I noticed that there were 2 police cars in the parking lot, and realized that they were there when we passed by the first time. I commented to my husband that I had the feeling that the police were there because of the woman we had found. So I carefully approached one of the police officers and asked if they were looking for someone missing, a woman. He confirmed that they were and asked if I had seen her. Then I told him everything that had happened from the moment I saw the body in the ditch until the time we left her at the gas station. The police officer thanked me for my help and said that he could give me details of the case, but that her attitude had been very intelligent. I took the opportunity and suggested that they go check on her at the police station to make sure she was really safe and if her mother had arrived. While talking to the police officer, an idea occurred to me that gave me a chill. I realized that all that confusion had probably started at the same hotel where we were staying. So, when I got back to our room, I decided to find out what had happened. I joined one of the city's WhatsApp groups on my cell phone, and as I read the comments about what had happened earlier that night, my heart sank. There had been a serious case of domestic violence at the hotel, and the woman had been brutally assaulted by her partner. The worst part was discovering that she was so terrified that she decided to flee into the darkness without a flashlight or anything. She must have walked almost 1 kilometer from the hotel, but the pain from her injuries must have been so intense that she ended up giving up and lying down on the road. You could imagine that at that moment she must have thought she was going to die there alone, but she preferred that to going back, because she had already managed to escape. I later learned that she had managed to escape from the room and go to the hotel reception to call her mother, asking her to pick her up at the gas station. When her husband realized she was missing, he called the police. The man who assaulted her was arrested thanks to her courage and, unfortunately, the desperation she felt. That night has never left my mind. To this day, I wonder what happened to her after we left her at that gas station. Did her mother arrive in time? Is she safe, far from that man? These questions haunt me. When I talk about it with my husband, about that motionless figure in the darkness of the road, he falls silent. I imagine he also carries the weight of knowing that we almost didn't stop. That experience taught me something fundamental. Always trust your intuition, because sometimes it is the only voice capable of saving a life. Is there anything worse than seeing a person jump off a balcony? Seeing that person disappear into thin air before touching the ground? My name is Augusto. I'm 28 years old, and what I'm about to tell you happened in my 2nd year of college, when I shared an apartment near campus and had an encounter that completely changed my perspective on what exists beyond life. I'll be 29 very soon. It all happened when I had just turned 20 and was studying medicine. I lived in a rented apartment on the 3rd floor of a building about a 15-minute walk from the university. I decided to share the place with 2 other guys to split the bills. One of them was Rodrigo, an electronics engineering student in his 3rd year. The other, Sandro, already had a degree in literature but was doing an MBA. We got along very well and were always joking with each other, thanks in part to our banter on social media. I remember that on August 20th, 2017, a few days after my birthday, I arrived home after a long day. It was around 7 p.m., and at that time Rodrigo and Sandro had gone to a bar at another friend's house, so I was alone when I arrived. When I entered the building's hallway, I got a fright. I saw a girl crouching in front of my apartment door. I looked around suspiciously, and seeing that neither Rodrigo nor Sandro were with her, I got closer. I wanted to help. So, instead of getting scared, I asked if she needed anything or if she had forgotten her key. She suddenly stood up and looked at me strangely. She immediately asked about Rodrigo, which gave me some relief, and I said that he had gone out for drinks with his friends. "If you want, you can wait here," I offered. She smiled and nodded. Without thinking much, I unlocked the door. She came in and started noticing everything. "You can sit wherever you like," I said. She settled on the sofa while I was still trying to process that strange situation. I offered her something to drink and asked if she wanted something to eat, but she said she didn't want anything. "I just wanted to see Rodrigo," was her reply. I was a little confused, so I asked what her relationship with him was. "I'm his girlfriend," she replied with the utmost naturalness. What surprised me most was that, from what I knew of Rodrigo, I had never seen him go out with anyone. I only remember him mentioning a girl he was with years ago, but he never talked about anything current. So, curiosity got the better of me. "Did you try calling him?" I asked. "I don't have my cell phone," was her curt reply. I looked at the girl in disbelief. Who in their right mind goes around without a cell phone in 2017? Determined to help, I took out my phone and offered. But she refused, saying, "I think I'll wait." I was hesitant. "Are you sure? Because they can take a long time," I warned. But she simply ignored me. "Look, I'm tired, but if you want to wait, at least send him a message and let him know you're here," I suggested. But she turned her head toward the window as if she didn't care about what I was saying. After a while, I gave up and said I was going to take a quick shower. I took my cell phone to the bathroom and texted Rodrigo to let him know that his girlfriend was waiting. A few minutes later, around 7:30, while I was in the shower, he called me. I didn't answer right away for obvious reasons, so I finished rinsing off, got dressed quickly, and called back. "Hello, this is a prank call. I'm not dating anyone right now." That was the first thing I heard. "It's not a prank call, primera repli." Somewhat alarmed. "There is a girl here who says she asked your girlfriend and insisted she was waiting for you." As soon as I said that, the atmosphere became tense. Rodrigo asked the girl's name, but I hadn't even had a chance to ask, and I told him that. Then he asked what she looked like. I looked down the hallway where she was, but I couldn't see clearly. The girl was still sitting, looking out the window. It's hard to say. I don't know much. She has fair skin, brown hair. In short, she's pretty normal. I just know she's here waiting for you. I started to get restless while I was talking. "Why didn't you ask her name?" he insisted, and I started to feel a chill down my spine. The girl had appeared out of nowhere, and her manner was strange. "I have a bad feeling, man. I don't like this," I confessed to Rodrigo. Now, the idea of T's girl who claimed to be the girlfriend of someone she did not know being inside my apartment was making me nervous. Who was she really? Was she waiting for someone, or was she just a malicious stranger? I didn't know what to do. I looked back at where she was, tried to get a better look. Then I told Rodrigo that the girl had long brown hair, with a deep, somewhat sad look. She wasn't very tall. She must have been 1.60 meters, and was wearing a dark green sweatshirt that seemed about 2 sizes too big for her, as well as jeans and black sneakers. After he described her appearance, there was a silence on the line for about 5 seconds that felt like an eternity. I asked if he'd ever had a crazy ex, laughing a little nervously, but what he said froze my smile instantly. "That girl looks like my girlfriend from 5 years ago. She had depression, and she died falling from her family's building." He spoke with a voice full of anguish. At that moment, panic overwhelmed me. I started sweating profusely and could only murmur, "What do I do?" "Don't say anything and don't make any sudden movements. I'm coming back. I'll be there in a few minutes, but don't hang up." As soon as he said that, I heard the sound of him running on the other end of the line. I was in shock, unable to process what I had just heard. I left the bathroom with my head spinning and my hair still wet. And there she was, standing, balancing on the balcony railing. I saw her crying while murmuring that she was never good enough for Rodrigo. And the scene was terrifying. I was still trying to understand what Rodrigo had told me. Without thinking, I hung up the phone and ran towards her, yelling for her to come inside. But when she turned her face to me, she smiled with a sadness that broke my heart. "I'll never find happiness. I was born sad," she said. And in the blink of an eye, she jumped. I screamed and reached out to try to grab her, but I failed miserably and closed my eyes tightly. Fear forced me to open my eyes again, and my heart sank when I saw there was no sign of her down there. A few minutes later, Rodrigo came running and found me on the balcony, pale and trembling. "Where is she?" he asked, and I told him what had happened while he let out a sigh of relief. He confessed that he had been dreaming about her and that sometimes he saw her silhouette wandering around. "It's because of this green sweatshirt." It was hers. I gave it to her a few hours before she jumped. She was at my house. We spent the afternoon together and had sex. When she was getting dressed to leave, I gave her the sweatshirt to wear, and she told me to keep it to have a memory of her. At that moment, I didn't quite understand what that meant, until sometime later her mother called him, telling him what had happened. I kept his sweatshirt until a little over a month ago, when I decided to go to the cemetery and leave it on her grave on the anniversary of her death. He explained everything honestly to me. I didn't know what to think. Rodrigo, I hadn't dated anyone since then, and almost never talked about the past. So I told her that the only thing I heard her say before jumping was about how she would never find happiness. That stayed cold and unspoken. Since that night, I carry with me the certainty that some pains are so deep that not even death can erase them. The girl in the green sweatshirt never found peace in life and perhaps returned seeking something that no longer existed. It was the first and only time I saw that girl. Rodrigo never mentioned having another encounter with her, and as far as I know, he hasn't seen her since then either. But every time I pass by that balcony, I feel a shiver and wonder if some souls really get stuck with the objects they once loved, or if sadness is capable of creating bonds so strong that they transcend death itself. Honestly, I pray I never find out the answer. I am going to be upfront about a bizarre experience that completely changed my view on relationships and made me want to stay away from dating for a long time. And just to be clear, it's not that common story of bad dates, where one of you does something stupid, like eating with your mouth open or only talking about yourself. This is something quite different, and thank God I came out alive to tell the tale. I was young, in my early 20s, and I thought I was the man at the peak of my life. I always liked to flirt and start conversations. Dates excited me, especially when the date ended with that good part we call dessert, if you know what I mean. At the time, I lived in the capital. I had just graduated from college, and had just gotten my first job in an office right downtown. It seemed like the best thing ever. Life was good. My self-esteem was sky high. In short, I was living the best moment of my life. One afternoon, after work, I decided to stop by a very crowded coffee shop. While waiting my turn, I saw a girl drop her cell phone on the floor, and without thinking, I bent down to help. When our eyes met, it was as if time stopped. She had the most intense blue eyes I've ever seen in my life. "Hi!" I said awkwardly, handing the phone back. "Sorry for the scare," I added. "I'm Flavia. Thank you for helping." She replied with a smile that left me speechless, but I noticed a sadness in her eyes. Swollen eyes, with dark circles, as if she had cried too much. "Are you okay?" I asked immediately. "Oh? Yes. Now I am," she said, but the smile seemed kind of forced, lifeless. Still, without thinking properly, I asked for her number. I thought it was kind of crazy, but she took a small piece of paper out of her bag and wrote it down. "I have to go," she said, and left quickly. I stood there nervously holding the paper until I looked and let out a huge smile. It had her number and a heart drawn next to it. I couldn't believe it. The most incredible woman I've ever seen was interested. After the euphoria, anxiety set in. Is there something I'm missing? I thought about it a lot and only managed to call at night. "Hi, we met at the coffee shop." I started, but she cut me off. "I was waiting for you to call me all day," she said, too excitedly. I was surprised, but I thought it was a good sign. The conversation was light, fun, and we arranged a date for the next day. The plan: dinner out. We discovered that we were both addicted to Japanese food. The date was incredible. Everything I could have wished for. Flavia was fun, intelligent, and clearly too beautiful. After that, we arranged a few more dates. Everything seemed perfect, but there was something about her that made me suspicious. I just didn't know what. I think passion blinded me. One night at a restaurant, she said, "Want to get out of here?" With that voice, that gave me goosebumps. We looked at each other. Her fingers squeezed my hand, and I replied, "Let's go," asking for the bill right away. We called a ride-sharing car and went to her apartment. When I arrived, the place was cozy, a good smell in the air. I asked, What's that smell? She laughed and said, lavender, while lighting a scented candle. Her gestures, her manner, indicated that she wanted the same thing as me. Only she was more direct than other women I've met. It was as if we had known each other for centuries. Are you ready for this? She asked. I thought to myself. Ready? I don't even know if I'm properly prepared. The night was perfect. We had a great time and then we went to sleep. Or so I thought, until around midnight. When I woke up to crying, I turned to her and saw that she was sitting on the bed with a box of tissues and a wet pillow. What happened? Are you okay? I asked, worried. She took a deep breath, turned to me and said, I never told you that my ex died. I felt a knot in my stomach and could only say no. If you wondered why a woman as beautiful as me is still single, it's because I haven't gotten over it. I murmured a sorry. He died a month ago, and since then, you've been the only person who has made me feel anything. She said with such an intense look that it seemed almost crazy. You're the one I feel a real connection with. I know we're soulmates. I felt a bad shiver. All of that was exaggerated for such a short time together. We are soulmates, she repeated, taking my hand, staring deeply into my eyes, and asked the strangest question of my life. Will you marry me? I was in shock. It was our third date, the first time we'd slept together, and she was already asking me that. Seriously, it's beautiful, but this is too fast. Only 3 dates, and I tried to explain as I got up, looking for my clothes that I couldn't find. Where are my things? I asked, and she laughed. Do you think you can use me and then just dump me out of nowhere? She said sarcastically, chilling me to the bone. Suddenly, she grabbed the lavender candle and threw it forcefully against the wall. Before I could react, she pulled a large knife from under the pillow in the kitchen. This one likes to do things that make me happy, she said, running her finger along the blade with a disturbed look. I tried to calm her down, but she freaked out and ran with the knife raised. I felt a sharp pain in my shoulder. She hit me. I screamed, pushed her away, slamming her against the wall. I was lucky that the apartment door was only latched, not locked with a four-sided key. I turned the doorknob and ran out. I went straight to the hospital, got stitches, and blocked her number everywhere. A few months passed, and I thought the nightmare was over. One afternoon, at the office, the secretary called me on the intercom. So-and-so? There's a client here insisting on speaking with you. Okay, you can send her in, I replied, thinking it was work. But when the door opened, my blood ran cold. It was her. Hi again, she said with a macabre smile. Sit down, she ordered. She opened her long coat, showing fresh cuts all over her body. Look what you did to me. I tried to grab the phone from the desk to call the front desk or the police, but she was faster. Don't even think about it, she said, pulling a gun from her purse and shooting the phone. The noise was loud, and the phone shattered into pieces. The secretary who was at the door screamed and ran down the hallway. Flavia, out of her mind, shot the coffee machine again, sending hot water flying everywhere, and pointed the gun at my head. Last words? He asked. I closed my eyes, waiting for it to end. I heard another bang and felt a blow to the same shoulder as before. I fell to the ground, dazed, and heard her yell, "Stay there, don't move." My vision blurred. The shooting triggered the building's security protocol. The elevator and stairwell doors closed automatically, blocking circulation, but security allowed the tactical police to enter. I passed out. When I woke up in the hospital, the police officer told me the rest. The police arrived quickly, cornered in the hallway, unable to exit through the blocked corridor or stairs. She returned to my office, shot at the tempered glass window until it shattered, and jumped from the 13th floor. She didn't stand a chance. The police said I was born again. In her house, they found a shrine with photos of several dead men, including her ex. The police believe some deaths were accidents or suicides, but she claimed quite a few victims. By some miracle, I escaped today. When I'm at home or at work, I never turn my back to the door. The clock showed almost 8 p.m. But when I put the finishing touches on my hair, my hands trembled slightly as I adjusted my curls, betraying the nervousness I was trying to hide. Blind dates always made me anxious, but this one felt different. Are you sure you really want to go out with a guy you only know from profile pictures? Julia, my roommate, asked, without taking her eyes off her phone where she was watching cat videos. We've been talking for weeks. Julia, he seems nice, I replied, applying a final touch of lipstick. She just shrugged. The ride-sharing car was already waiting for me outside, and in 20 minutes I would be at the cafe, where we had arranged our first date. Matthias and I had met a few weeks ago on a dating app, and after many conversations, we finally decided to meet in person. When I arrived at the cafe, I spotted him immediately, dressed all in black. Matthias was sitting at the only empty table in the place. Around him, several couples chatted animatedly, creating a romantic atmosphere that made me even more nervous. "Sorry I'm late," I said as I approached. He smiled, looking at his wristwatch. "I only waited 30 days. 20 to 5, he joked. We laughed together, and the initial tension dissipated. The conversation flowed naturally as we shared some dishes. Matthias was funny, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in what I was saying. I began to consider the possibility of continuing the evening at his house when, around 9:30, he got up to go to the bathroom. As I watched him walk away, I noticed something falling from his pocket. It was a folded handkerchief. Instinctively, I bent down to pick it up, but upon touching it, I felt something strange. The handkerchief had an unusual weight, as if it were wrapping around some object. Curiosity got the better of me, and looking around to make sure no one was watching, I unfolded the fabric. My stomach instantly froze. Inside the handkerchief was a surgical scalpel, its blade stained with what appeared to be dried blood. For a moment, I was paralyzed, unable to process what I was seeing. Julia's words echoed in my mind like an alarm. "Do I need to get out of here?" I thought, quickly folding the handkerchief. After a moment of hesitation, I put the handkerchief in my bag. It wasn't the most logical decision, but in that moment of panic, I thought it could be important evidence if something happened. I forced myself to take a deep breath and compose my expression when I saw Matthias returning. "Are you okay?" he asked, noticing my change in behavior. "Yes," I lied, trying to smile, just checking some messages. His eyes, which had previously seemed kind, now had a disturbing glint that I hadn't noticed before. Or perhaps it was just my imagination fueled by fear. "How about we go to my house after this?" he suggested, leaning over the table. My brain worked quickly to find an excuse. "I just got a message from Julia. She's not feeling well and I need to go home," I said, trying to sound natural. "We can schedule another day." The change in his expression was immediate and frightening. His smile vanished, replaced by an expression I couldn't decipher. Slowly, he picked up the fork from my plate and began tapping it on the table between his open fingers at an increasingly rapid pace. The noise of the surrounding conversation seemed to diminish, and all I could hear was the metallic sound of the fork hitting the wood. Small splinters began to fly from the table with each blow. "Matthias," I whispered, feeling my throat dry. "What are you doing?" He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the movements of the fork, which accelerated with each passing second. Suddenly, a drop of blood appeared on his finger, but he continued as if he felt no pain. "Stop it!" I said, noticing that some people at nearby tables were starting to look in our direction. "This isn't funny." When he finally looked up at me, a shiver ran down my spine. There was something predatory in that gaze, something that made me feel like cornered prey. "If you don't stop, I'll scream," I warned, gathering all the courage I could find. The fork stopped abruptly. Matthew looked at the small cut on his finger and, in a gesture that turned my stomach, slowly licked the blood. "I thought we'd spend more time together tonight," he said in a strangely calm voice. "Another day, maybe," I replied, trying not to show the panic I felt. He called the waiter and paid the bill. I wanted to offer to pay my share, but I was so scared that I couldn't utter a word. 5 minutes later, we were outside the cafe. "Good night," I murmured, turning to leave as quickly as possible. Before I could take a step, I felt fingers close around my wrist with surprising force. He pulled me close, so close that I could feel his warm breath on my face. "I thought you liked me," she said in a voice that tried to sound hurt, but had a threatening tone. "I did," I replied quickly. "I just really need to go home now." His grip tightened, and I could feel my pulse quickening beneath his fingers. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't let me go. His eyes scanned my face, as if memorizing every detail. Suddenly, without warning, he shoved me hard. Off balance, I fell to the ground, feeling the sharp pain as my knees scraped against the concrete. My pants ripped, and I soon felt the warm blood running down my leg. I looked up, stunned, just in time to see Matthew spit in my direction. The gesture was so unexpected, so full of contempt, that I was momentarily "When they find you, if they ever do," he said, bending down to whisper in my ear, "you won't even be recognizable." Then he walked away, calmly strolling down the sidewalk as if nothing had happened. I stood there trembling, unable tomobo, watching his silhouette disappear into the night. A cafe employee, who had gone out to take out the trash, saw me lying there and rushed to help. Upon seeing my condition and the blood on my legs, he immediately called the police. Less than 15 minutes later, I was in the back seat of a police car wrapped in a thermal blanket, still trembling uncontrollably. At the police station, I reported everything to the officers, including the scalpel I found. I handed over the handkerchief as evidence. They tried to locate Matthias through the dating app, but his account had already been deleted, without a last name, address, or any other information besides a few photos. The chances of finding him were minimal. The following week, I couldn't sleep properly. Every noise made me jump out of bed, certain that Matthias had found me. Julia, concerned about my safety and her own, suggested that we move. In 10 days, we were already in a new apartment on the other side of town. Today, a month after that terrible encounter, I still carry pepper spray and a stun gun in my bag. I installed extra security systems at home and rarely go out alone at night. I deleted all my accounts on dating apps and have difficulty trusting new people who enter my life. Sometimes, I wonder if Matthew was really a predator looking for his next victim, or just someone with serious mental problems. In any case, I learned the hard way that behind a carefully constructed online profile can hide someone completely different and potentially dangerous. I don't know if I'll ever feel completely safe again, but I am learning to live with this new normal, and I hope my story serves as a warning to others. Trust your instincts and never ignore warning signs, no matter how small they may seem.